to the Pop Occulture Show, where we dig into the crossroads of popular culture and the occult. I'm your co-host, Jason Winslade. This is my co-host,
Lilith
Lilith
Dorsey. Hi,
Dorsey.
everybody. Thanks for watching.
We are coming to you from Chicago and New Orleans, as we always do. And we have a special episode tonight. And this is as close as I get to a tux. So, um, and I've got my shaken not stirred fake martini. Cheers.
It's beautiful.
And I mean it's shaken by our soda streamer, so you know.
I was like, I have my spooky skull glass.
So yeah, we're actually recording in the evening tonight, so I'm in my evening wear. Usually we record during the day when we're still drinking our coffee and tea. The reason why we're like this is because we're doing the 1973 classic Live and Let Die. Dun-dun,
Da-na-na,
dun-dun-dun,
da-na.
dun-dun. Yeah, the James Bond film. And we were super serious last time with some controversy and debate, but this one's fun. I mean, I'm sure there are some things that probably are controversial in a 1973 James Bond film, but this is, I think, the fun stuff that we're doing tonight. Because I mean, if you can't have fun with James Bond, what fun are you? So yeah, and we have a special guest tonight. Tell them about our special guest, Lilith.
I'm so excited for our special guest. Our special guest is Deborah Lipp, who has been a dear friend of mine for many, many years. I won't say how many because, we don't speak of these things. But right, we're old, I tell you. But yeah, I met Deb when we were at, I think it was a Manhattan Magic gathering, and I'm sure she'll talk about this when when she gets on the show. But we put our toddlers together in a pile of soft toys to play, and I remember, and now they're all grown, so that's where we're at with that. But she's one of the few people that I think is like an OG magic person. People accuse me of being an OG magic person. I guess you are too, Jason. But some of us have been around for decades, and we've seen a lot of changes in that time. But she's also an expert on James Bond. So I'm really excited that we've got this sort of perfect guest, perfect crossover for this episode tonight. And I really wanted to talk about this because it's the voodoo James Bond, right? Like, we're 70s kids and we grew up with this. I feel like this for me is the iconic James Bond film. And watching it again in a lot of ways, I think it's even better than I remembered.
Yeah, I mean, if the O in OG stands for older rather than original, then I think that describes me at least. I don't know how original I am, but older. And we were 70s kids, and growing up. I mean, I watched this film. I mean, I'm pretty sure when I was a kid, I mean, I watched James Bond films heavily edited on television, and it's funny because I remember watching the opening sequence. I'm like, oh, they probably wouldn't have shown this part on television. I probably wouldn't have seen this back then. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's funny that we've been going back to the 70s, and not just that, but 73 seems to be this banner year for
The
pop
year.
culture. I mean, we're looking at Holy Mountain and Hodorowski's Dune, and there were some other 70s things that we were looking at too. Like there's something about that early 70s zeitgeist that I don't know. You can't beat the style, you know.
No, it's true. It's true. I love that opening sequence. It's all like skulls and boobies. I'm like,
And fire.
yeah, right. And Paul McCartney from Wings. I mean, come
Yeah.
on, like it's the
I mean,
best.
we were watching. I was watching it with my partner Vivian, and she always loves like pointing out the makeup and the the costumes. I was like, oh, that's 70s makeup and everything. But I loved it when James Bond turns the light on in his kitchen, and you've got that 70s kitchen with the brass roosters on the wall, and oh my God, yeah, I just love seeing all that stuff. I mean, the cars, the the pimp mobiles, the pimp clothes. I mean, there's just so much. It's a visual treat, to go back in time, and there was a lot there that I think is, it's glamorized 70s, because my 70s household did not look like that. Um, I mean, we had our shag carpeting and our fake wood paneling and all that fun stuff, but yeah, just that sort of luxury 70s. I mean, I think some of my Italian relatives, who had the Teamsters connections, maybe had some of those. Like, I think my aunt had like one of those circular beds, and with the tape deck the 8-track, I should say, the 8-track tape deck.
Yeah, right. Oh my gosh.
So, but we're babbling now. We should probably talk to Deborah and get her take on it. I knew Deborah as well, just briefly at festivals. So I've talked to her over the years, and was just recently at the when she premiered her, or re-premiered her Four Elements book.
The Way of the Four.
Way of the Four, right?
I wrote the foreword.
Right. So yes, you wrote the foreword to The Way of the Four, and I just saw her at the book release event here at Mallory Bros in Chicago not too long ago. So yeah, we go way back. Well, let's bring it over to Deborah, and let's have a fun discussion about Live and Let Die.
Dun-dun-dun, dun-dun.
All right, we want to welcome Deborah Lipp, our guest. Welcome, Deborah. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me.
Yay.
Yeah. So Deborah, if you don't know, Deborah is an author and witch, and published so many books. Most recently, we've got Bending the Binary, Polarity Magic in a Non-Binary World. I love that title. And Magical Power for Beginners. And we just had the re-release of your book, The Way of Four, that Lilith did the intro to at right here in Chicago. We did a little release with Crosscrow Books here in Chicago. But you also have you have all these magical books, and then there's the ultimate James Bond fan book.
Everybody needs a hobby.
Oh, right. As you say on your website, one of these things is not like the other. So tell us why, amongst all this magical stuff, James Bond.
Well, I've always been a movie fan, and there is a joy to writing about pop culture, whereas, if you write in the occult community, you are a target, and it's serious. And I take my occultism quite seriously, right? I care very much about it. But so there's a joy in writing about something that has fundamentally less meaning, that it's just fun. And I'm passionate about James Bond. It's not the only pop culture writing I've done. I'm fairly well known in some circles for the writing I did about Mad Men. That was my other big. I had a Mad Men blog. I had the Mad Men blog, to tell you the truth. And we were actually the first ones out of the gate on that show, and the blog was quite popular for several years. But James Bond is a special passion of mine, and Pussy Galore may have helped me figure out that I'm queer. that may have contributed. And I think because I was already a writer when I started getting ideas about writing about James Bond, I was like, I'd already had several books in print, so I just was like, go for it. And it had become a ritual, actually, with me and my daughter. So one day I'm sitting on the couch and I'm watching The Living Daylights. And I was already divorced by then. And so Ursula and her father were out, and they arrive home in the middle of this incredible adventure scene. And and she comes in and she's, what's this? You know, so I said, it literally where the two guys are hanging off the back of a jet fighting. It's a great scene. And so I said, you know, it's a series of movies. There are, I think at that time, there were 19. I think it was yes, it was before Die Another Day came out. So there were at that time 19 movies. So I said, you know, we could watch them all. And my daughter has obsessive compulsive disorder. So there was no dipping into this. We were going to watch them all in chronological order. There were a couple where I'm like, could we skip this one? No, we had to do that. And so at some point in there, I was like, I have a lot to say about these movies, and I just started taking notes. And by the time we got to Die Another Day, I was committed. And then my COVID project, so the publisher of that book was a rotten scoundrel, the ultimate James Bond fan book. And so sometimes No Time to Die was actually the first major movie to be postponed as a result of the pandemic. So at some point during lockdown, when we're all sitting home staring at our walls, I thought, I wonder if that book is still in print, because if it's not in print, then I own the rights to it. And so I go to the publisher's website and porn starts popping up all over my screen. They're like, well, I guess it's not in print anymore. So my COVID project, while other people were learning to make sourdough bread, you know, I rewrote the entire book, incorporating all the Daniel Craig movies to that date, not No Time to Die, and then taught myself self-publishing. And so now the Ultimate James Bond fan book is huge. It's this big tome, as I had always sort of imagined it to be, and it's fully updated, with the exception of No Time to Die. And it's and self-publishing is a lot of work, but it's actually really fun, and people like it. I got really good reviews.
We are here to talk about Live and Let Die. And, yeah, so 1973, it's the I believe it was the 8th James Bond film at that time. Roger Moore's premiere, his first one. I think Diamonds Are Forever was the one just previous. Let's see, directed by Guy Hamilton, screenplay by Tom Mankiewicz. Yeah, there were two little factoids that I found interesting that were like almost you know, things that almost happened, that I believe that they approached Salvador Dali to do the tarot deck, and he was too expensive for them, but he did wind up doing his surrealist tarot deck afterwards. That's one. And that the screenplay writer originally imagined Solitaire being Diana Ross.
Yes.
I thought that was really interesting.
That would have been great. Well, they actually, so this is the first time that that Bond is with a Black woman, and they were so scared of theaters in the South refusing to show the movie that they actually wrote Rosie Carver's part such that all of those scenes could be cut out of the movie without losing anything of the plot. Like, you do not have to know that she's in that movie. And that actress, Gloria Hendry, has been, you know, really great with the James Bond fan base community, and has been, you know, very generous with her time and stuff. She was not well treated by that movie. That character is an idiot, but Gloria Hendry herself is a delight.
Wow. Yeah, because one of the things that it meant that, you know, in any kind of description, it mentions, oh, it was the height of the blaxploitation era, and, you know, it was trying to take advantage of a certain kind of trend and all that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Live and Let Die was trying to take advantage of blaxploitation the way that Moonraker was trying to take advantage of Star Wars.
Right.
The problem with Live and Let Die is that the whole point of blaxploitation is that it is created by and for Black people. not a white Englishman coming in and saying, "Hi, let me rescue all of you," and be freaked out by you. Like,
And I'm going to apologize in case you can hear it. I actually have a brass band outside. I don't know why, but I think this is maybe, you know, the brass band in the movie, the Olympia Brass Band. I'd forgotten that movie even took place in New Orleans at all, you know?
Yeah.
So, and the Olympia Brass Band, I did find out, has been around since 1883. So I thought that even though it wasn't a Black creator or a Black director, all those other lovely things that we have for Blaxploitation films, we did have these iconic New Orleans moments like the Olympia Brass Band coming in there. And I just love that opening scene with the second line and the coffin and the murder. And you know, that to me speaks of the true original meaning of Mardi Gras, which was, you know, and you get into it with the faces and Yaphet Kotto, that Mardi Gras in New Orleans is a place where people can show their real face and also hide and conduct their real business. And I think that that's comes out pretty clear, even though it's not stated in that way.
Well, first I thought you were going to say like, oh, the true meaning of Mardi Gras, murder.
Well, you know, that's, but well, again, that was, you know, you could disguise, and it was lawlessness. It was total lawlessness in the streets at the beginning. So
well,
it still is lawlessness.
I guess the guy that knifes him was an actual is a New Orleans jazz musician, the actor who plays the murderer. So I love that detail too. But I was trying to figure out how that coffin worked. Whether if you just like, you know, put it on top of a body, it just picks up the body, you know. Like, I couldn't quite figure that out. But yeah, that's one of the first things we see in the movie that we know that okay, suddenly it's going to be different. And one of the things I wanted to point out, and like I was watching the movie to see if there was any, you know, good guys who were Black, and you got the CIA guy and then Rosie Carver, of course. But it's, and I don't know whether this is a racist thing or not, but it's like it just seemed like the movie was sort of, there was this notion that like pretty much if you were Black, you were in on the scheme, like that there was this almost this cult-like mentality that, okay, yeah, if you're a random Black guy, it was almost this conspiracy theory that all Black people are in on it together, you know. I don't know.
Well, it's called the Occult Voodoo Shop, OHCULT, the Occult Voodoo. So
I love that.
It is. It does seem like a racist thing to me, because we're coming from this space of like, oh, there's something those Black people know,
Other.
and you know, yeah, totally other.
And they all
totally
know each other. They all know each other.
So yeah, let's talk about that occult aspect. You know, we see the High Priestess card on the tarot. So San Monique is supposed to be, it's pretty much Haiti, but they couldn't actually film in Haiti because of Baby Doc, and so they're filming in Jamaica. So it's a fictional island, but yeah, you go there. There's the High Priestess thing. Solitaire's got her deck. The occult stuff is meant to be somewhat, you know, it's sensationalistic, of course, but also kind of tongue-in-cheek. Especially Bond's, you know, Roger Moore's approach to it, because he's very like blasé and just kind of, you know, and he gets Solitaire to sleep with him because he somehow is able to get a deck of just lovers cards. Like, where do you get that deck?
He clearly purchased 78 decks. That is a lot of money to spend just to get a woman to bed with you.
I mean, it's Jane Seymour. I mean, you know, maybe I could see it, but
introducing Jane Seymour, that was virgin territory right there.
Virgin territory.
Hi, see what you did there. She was 19.
Wow. She looks so young. I can't even. It's just amazing to me that like introducing Jane Seymour. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, let's
but I did want to talk about the tarot just for a minute, because I know.
Sure.
That the whole point of like, oh, she loses her power when she loses her virginity. I mean, that's that's a little sketchy. But yeah, so yeah, let's talk about that. What do you think about the use of tarot? Because that seems to be one of the main things, use of tarot and the voodoo.
Yeah. I mean, he starts off with, you know, he picks the Fool, right? Like, so he's literally at the beginning of his journey. And then he goes through the 78 lovers. And I just love how it's, but the Yaphet Kotto character and all the, Black people in the film seem to take this as gospel, which I think is interesting. I can't really think of another film where you've got like an entire half the cast being like, okay, whatever, we're going to do whatever the cards say, like that's strange.
And Yaphet Kotto actually says that that's one of the things that he liked about the character was his interest in the occult. So yeah.
And Geoffrey Holder was a huge influence on how the movie was made.
Right.
His voice in terms of what his character was and who his character was, and it's one of the reasons that, well, he's the highlight of the film to me.
Mm-hmm.
But he was given a lot of creative control over his piece of the movie. And that was really important. But in terms of the tarot, yeah, they had reached out to Salvador Dali, decided they couldn't afford it. One of the things here, I've got a card here. I don't know where the rest of this deck is. It's highly collectible. What they did was they marketed it. The reason this one is so collectible is they're no longer sold with that 007 back. You can still get a Fergus Hall tarot deck in any occult store, but they have a regular diamond pattern back. But it's so silly because she's reading with this deck and she's flipping the cards over, and you can see that the back of the card says 007. Oh, that's very
that's in the film.
That's some covert spying there.
Wow. I mean, maybe she had the power to predict that somehow and have the right deck. Because when she's at the very beginning, she's like, oh, he's traveling very fast, and you've got like, the all the swords and
well, I've done a lot with that, with zooming in and expanding the screen, and I know just about every card that's used in that. I've got the whole thing, it's in my book, there's a whole chapter on it. Every card that's read, and what she says is fairly consistent. Like he travels swiftly, I think, is the Knight of Swords, and then there's the Six of Swords. So these are all consistent with the way she's reading the cards. You could say, yes, he's traveling, and then you see the Six of Swords, which is often a card of travel. He travels swiftly. The Knight of Swords, which is the one on the very fast horse. So there is somebody decided to pick correct cards for that scene.
Do we know if they had a tarot consultant or anything like that?
That I don't know. I did correspond with Fergus Hall's daughter about the creation of the deck. Hall ran out of time though, and you can see in the movie at some point they just switch over into a Rider-Waite Smith deck. They just the original. It's very interesting because the original plan was clearly to have 78 illustrated cards, as in a Waite Smith deck, right? And you can see a couple of minor arcana that are fully illustrated in the movie. But if you go and buy a deck, the minor arcana are pip cards. They are not fully illustrated.
Wow.
So Fergus Hall just sort of gave up at some point and said, I'm not doing this. And so later in the movie, I guess they ran out of time, because then they just, went into the occult bookstore and bought some Rider-Waite decks to do the rest of the readings.
So what do we make of Solitaire's character and her, it's the virginity that gives her the power?
I mean, I think it's an interesting, and I'd love to hear what you have to say about this, Deb. It's an interesting depiction of feminine power and psychic energy being linked to sexuality, which it's almost, especially if we look at things of the time, it's almost a reverse of this kind of image of paganism and witchcraft being sexually free. It's like what keeps your power is not giving in, right?
Yeah, I always think of it as like that she's like this priestess, right? That she has to hold her own power. And when she's ready to move on to the next stage of life, then she can do that, and it actually gives her power over her own destiny. Yaphet Kotto now is enraged with her and would surely have killed her or some probably killed her
Yeah.
as punishment if James Bond wasn't there. But in effect, she has control over her own body, so she gets to decide if she's the priestess of the tarot or if she's a woman and a lover.
Right.
You know, she can like make that transition herself. So I mean, the sexual politics are weird, but if you set aside the politics and just look at it magically, I think it's kind of cool.
No,
Yeah.
I think so too. I love this line when she gets like the high priestess and the prince card together, and it's like, this is the spiritual bridge to a secret church. That's such a lusty line. I'm like, oh my God.
And
Yeah.
she's into it. I mean, it takes
trying to
nothing
remember,
for her
like-
to decide that what we need to do is have sex all the time.
Yeah.
Because I'm trying to remember if there was ever any explanation of like why. I mean, I guess her mother was involved with him at one point, so then she was. So there's like somehow she's under his thumb because of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The implication is that she inherited her mother's power, and that the same thing happened, that her mother lost her power when she lost her virginity, and then so, you know, disgustingly, maybe he's her father.
Oh. Okay. Yeah.
I don't think I ever thought of that before. Now I'm upset.
I didn't put that together. Yeah. Well, let's talk about the voodoo.
Okay.
You know, because there's some real stuff in there, and there's some really not real stuff in there. But like, you got your vevas, you got your you got your drums. You know, what's because you said that this was formational for you because this is the first time you'd seen this stuff on screen. So what did you
Sure.
take from that? What did you take from that?
Well, I mean, I think, as we were mentioning before, it comes down to Geoffrey Holder. We talk about, he was Trinidadian, I believe. He was an initiated priest. This is what my research has told me. Actually, my uncle used to work with him in a couple of plays there in Jersey. Deb. So I always thought that was fascinating. But I think his influence, first of all, the choreography, he was in charge of that. So already we're setting up like a sacred space with those dances. And I think that goes a long way in how the ritual scenes and stuff are received. And I can also see his influence in, you're right, the vevas and other things like that. And some of the just sort of generalized practices. So that was fascinating to me because I think this does have a lot of validity. We were talking before about Exorcist Believer, which had an initiated person as advisor, and it didn't end up with the film falling short, seriously, So, and I think there's ways in which this didn't fall short for me. I think there was, talking about Legba, talking about the Baron, saying things like Ibobo, all of these are things that people are going to recognize if they've been in voodoo ceremonies.
And I love the fact that I forgot about this, that he's alive at the end, sitting on the train. Like, is he really? Because we see him being shot, but he's not real. It's like, is he a magician? Is he a voodoo spirit? Whatever.
And that was also his idea. He's like, Baron doesn't die, and what if? And they let him do it. It was he's the only Bond villain in all those movies who continues to survive, and it just remains unresolved. Like even with Blofeld surviving, you keep going after him. But no, Baron just goes away.
He's just hanging out on the train because why not? It's fun.
Yeah.
I love that. It's like he transcends space and time, and he keeps going. I love all of it.
And what that does, and it's very rare for a mainstream movie like this to take the occult seriously. But we do see that until she loses her virginity, her predictions are dead accurate, and then they aren't, just as she said they wouldn't be. And we see that the Baron transcends death. So this movie just lets you have a question mark on this occultism seems real. There's nothing, it's not an occult movie. Mainstream movies that are not occult movies don't do that.
Right. Yeah,
No,
it's
I agree.
a fascinating entry in the whole franchise.
No, that's why it's my favorite. I just love it. Like I said, I've seen things that were modern that were a hell of a lot less accurate than this is, you know. And I think even with the tarot, you know, it always seems to be like there's nothing about it that's inherently dangerous, right? How many times have we seen that? Oh, look, the death card. No, there's a whole bunch of cards. Death comes by, high priestess comes by, fool comes, like it's like there's it's like more like real life, you know. These are like any of us would use the cards in a sort of normal circumstance to figure out what was happening. And that's sort of how they portray it. So the cards themselves aren't inherently evil, even though it's a tool used by the villains. They're not inherently evil in any way.
Yeah, Bond brings the tower, so it's like their whole operation is going to fall apart because of Bond. But yeah, they're
Yeah,
not.
it's
Yeah.
a very tower ending. I mean, he blows up the poppy fields. It's 100% like a tower ending. And she's not evil. That's the thing, right? So the person who is most connected with the tarot is one of the good guys.
Mm.
You know, Yaphet Kotto is manipulating her. He's not. He's the villain, but he's not the one using the tarot.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, so we like Live and Let Die. I guess is what we're
Yes.
saying, is that even though it is blaxploitation ish, even though it's that 70s kind of like, I mean, there's this I mean, that's the whole thing we always talked about these early 70s films, that there was this ambivalence around the occult. Like they'll throw it in there, but they're not going to totally subscribe to it, but yet they take it seriously at the same time. So there's this really interesting balance, I think, that goes on in early 70s films that depict the occult, and this is one of them.
Well, I have to say, I don't love the movie as a James Bond movie, but I love the tarot in it. I love the occultism in it. I love Geoffrey Holder, and I love the costumes. Oh my God, that getup that they put Jane Seymour in.
Oh yeah,
The
yeah.
movie is worth the price of admission for that alone.
Yes. Her makeup too. Oh my gosh. Amazing.
But not a favorite Bond film.
No, no, there are many better.
Roger Moore was just getting his feet wet at that point. But yeah, there were some fight scenes that were like, oh wow, that's a little lame. Like I'm just gonna hit them with a fire escape or something, and they're knocked out. Okay. But anyway, well, we really appreciate your take on this as the occult Bond expert, and
it's a niche.
it's
Yeah.
for sure. So yeah, we really appreciate you joining us on the Popper Culture Show. And this is the kind of thing we were just saying. This is the kind of thing we love, having our friends and experts on, or often both, and having chats about this stuff.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much. This was a lot of fun.
So we want to thank Deborah Lipp for joining us and indulging our pop culture shenanigans and talking about Live and Let Die. And there's all kinds of books that she's got out there, so you should check it out, and we'll put that information in the credits. And yeah.
So I just want to thank everybody again for watching. I want to thank everybody for subscribing to our Patreon, liking, commenting, sharing, all those wonderful things that keep us going. We love you.
Yeah, check out our Patreon site if you haven't. There's lots of fun extras on there. Join us, give us a few bucks a month, and you'll see all kinds of fun stuff. And maybe at some point we'll have some merch. Now we got the stickers, but maybe we can upgrade to, I don't know, mugs or tote bags or something.
Yeah, that sounds good. I mean, I'd certainly love to do a giveaway of my new book, Tarot Every Which Way. So
we're gonna
people
get
can
to
stay
soon.
tuned for that.
We're gonna get to that soon. So coming up next, we are going to attempt to binge the Netflix show The Dead Boy Detectives, which is a spin-off of Sandman. And I always love anything Neil Gaiman created, and especially some of the better adaptations anyway. And we're gonna have some fun delving into that and having some fun with the paranormal. And we'll see you the next time on the Papa Culture Show.
Pop Culture Show.
Oh, one more time. Dun-dun-dun, dun-dun-dun,
Dun,
dun-dun-dun,
dun,
dun-dun-dun,
dun, dun,
dun-dun-dun.
dun, 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 dun.